Good morning and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and thank you so much for joining us here this morning. And Jay Smooth, he is on it this morning. He says, "Good morning, beautiful Black Americans." Thank you so much, Jay, for joining us from YouTube. And we're also live on X and Facebook. So thanks everyone for joining me and Black Americans and all Americans alike. There's just so much news. And today is Tell It All Tuesday. And I tend to get into some topics that, we might normally hear, and there's just been so many rabbit holes that I have gone down. And I was just like, sometimes you just have to stand back, stop and assess like, okay, what's more important and what is going to be the most impactful, right? And I don't want to say in the short term, but I want to say in the immediate, right? Right now, this is where we really should be focusing our efforts and giving our attention, right? So we are definitely going to touch on a little bit of immigration today. We're going to touch on the CDC, and we're also going to touch on, things in the job market, right? Like what's really going on. But people are crashing out over the Supreme Court ruling. I woke up this morning, I was like, whoa, okay. They did that. They did that. People are upset. You're gonna profile people based on the way they look. And like I said a couple of months ago, what I don't like, and nobody to me has not really said anything about this. I do not like that they have made the Latin population the face of illegal immigration, right? Because we have several countries that are here illegally. They just happen to be the majority, but they're still not the only people here illegally, right? And with that, there are people here from the Latin community that are here legally, right? They do have their paperwork in order, and it's a slap in the face to them, in my opinion, for other people to come over here illegally and demand to have the same rights that they do. That's what's boggling my mind. I'm like, really? Really? We are out here with every cape on imaginable to support criminal behavior. And they really want to say that these people, well, they're not criminals. Yes, you are. If you broke the law in any form or fashion, whether it is civil or federal, you're a criminal, period. You're done. You're done. You're toast. But everybody wants to make excuses and try to, make it seem like, well, they're good people. No, they're not. You were not a good person if you came here illegally. Sorry to break it to you. Sorry to hurt your feelings. But your feelings actually need to be hurt because you need to be told the truth. Because I'm not going to sit here and tell you a lie. I'm not. I don't care what country you're from. If you came here illegally, you came here illegally. That's just the bottom line. And Black Empower, thank you so much for joining us this morning and reposting the stream. So let's get into this. And Black Empower says, good morning and good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. So we're going to get into one of these articles that I came across talking about the Supreme Court allows ICE raids to continue. So what people are truly crashing out about, and I'm not gonna, make you suffer through the video I had to watch with Karen Bass and all these other individuals, but they're basically saying, oh, now people can be profiled. And here's the thing with ICE. They are really working on reasonable suspicion. Now, if the majority of the people working as day laborers and they're here illegally and they just happen to be at Home Depot and ICE knows, hey, this is where illegal day laborers are, right? Maybe one of those 5 day laborers actually has a criminal record and ICE is looking for that person. The other 4 that are here illegally are going to get caught up in that. I need to say it again. The other 4 that are here illegally are going to get caught up because they are around this person, even though they may not even know that he's committed any other crimes or that ICE is looking for that person specifically. right? But at the end of the day, like I'm saying, you're here illegally. You're breaking the law, and then you want to act like somebody should feel sorry for you. No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that today or ever. If you are here in this country illegally, you need to return to your country of origin. Over 1 million people have done it already. So obviously they got the memo. Okay. They got the memo, they took the money and they left. What are we talking about? The rest of you need to follow suit. And these activists and these judges and these politicians, I need you all to remember their names because they need to be removed from any type of office. And in my opinion, some of them need to just be put in prison. Yes, Karen Bass needs to be put into prison. She is violating Title 8, Section 1324, which, I had Judge Joe Brown on the show, and he graciously came on the show to explain to us, right, what that meant and how it's a violation of federal law when you are harboring illegal aliens knowingly and willingly. And they've done it and they've spent money to do it. Yeah. We're not going to be involved in this criminal behavior with you. And I think that's really what it's coming down to in this country. Who are the criminals and who aren't, and who's supporting criminal activity and who's not. I'm on the side of I'm not supporting criminal activity at any level. And this includes the politicians as well. Now, a lot of people will be like, well, Donald Trump, he's a criminal. He is, and I don't support him. I like the policies. I don't support him. And let me say that again with my whole chest. I do not support him. I like the policies. Okay. This is a business transaction. Get out of your feelings. I'm out of mine. And I'm a woman. Okay. So I'm going to need you to get it together. Just saying. Now, the Supreme Court, excuse me, put a hold on a federal district court's previous ruling that barred federal immigration officers from questioning or detaining people based solely on their ethnicity, language, occupation, or presence at a particular location. Like I was explaining the whole Home Depot scenario, allowing immigration and customs enforcement to resume raids in Los Angeles, which they need to. Yeah. So in July, immigration rights groups and labor unions sued the Trump administration, arguing that ICE was arresting people without reasonable suspicion and targeting them based on their race and language. As a result, a federal district judge blocked ICE from conducting raids in Los Angeles. On September 8th, the Supreme Court removed the block in a 6-3 decision. Justice Brett Kavanaugh wrote that that apparent ethnicity alone cannot furnish reasonable suspicion, but said that it can be a relevant factor when considered along with other salient factors. Like I said, if you've got 5 people there and they already know that Home Depot, and I'm using Home Depot as an example because it's a good example. If you have 5 day laborers there, right? And you know this is where illegals go to get work. Why wouldn't you go there to pick them up? Maybe, I don't know, maybe those people that are here illegally, maybe they should work on getting their paperwork and being here legally. And if that means going back to their home country, right? If that means going back home to come here the right way legally, maybe they should do that as opposed to blocking up our court system and using our tax dollars to regurgitate these individuals. Oh, and insult to injury. By the way, they let some of these people go, even if they've committed heinous crimes. Like in the situation in Chicago, where a man who was here illegally, he found a woman, decapitated her, and put her body in a bucket of bleach. They found it in his backyard. They found it, y'all. They arrested him, and then they released him back out into the public. Yeah, that happened. And then federal immigration had to come in and relock this person up. What are we doing? Stop it. And stop saying there's levels of crime. No, there's not. There's level of consequences to the crime. There's no level of crime. Criminals are criminals, period, the end. And if you made your child a criminal, that's on you, not on us. Stop breaking the law and telling us that we need to accept that law breaking is okay. It's not okay. And I'm going to stand on that. Stop that. So, response from the Trump administration: Attorney General Pam Bondi called the ruling a massive victory on X, writing, "Now ICE can continue carrying out roving patrols in California without judicial micromanagement," which they shouldn't. So, response from critics: Justice Sonia Sotomayor, joined by the two other liberal judges on the Supreme Court, wrote in her dissent, "We should not have to live in a country where the government can seize anyone who looks Latino, speaks Spanish, and appears to work a low-wage job." Well, here's my thing, ma'am. Again, there are other countries here that aren't Latino. Why are you making Latinos the face of illegal immigration? By the way, did you stop and think about that? You're a judge. I think these people are so caught up in their emotions and their feelings that they're really not thinking straight. She's not thinking straight. And I'm not going to give it to her. She's been a justice for a minute now. And she gets it. But no, ma'am, we're not going to feel sorry for anybody like that. And first of all, why are they here working a low wage job? Right? Because, see, they shouldn't be allowed to get any resources and they shouldn't be here. They shouldn't be here in the first place. They're here illegally. There have been people here illegally 20, 30 years that we're finding out about haven't been deported. Just saying. Really? But you want to make Latinos the face of this because that's what you're doing. You're not talking about the Africans. You're not talking about the Asians. You're not talking about anybody else who's here illegally. So you're the problem. And you're a Supreme Court judge. Yeah, I'm calling that. You're an issue. Just saying, stop being what does they call it? An activist from the bench. Sit back, gather your emotions and your feelings, and follow the law. Because yeah, there was a time in this country where if and it still is in some parts, and our government had the opportunity to really fix it and they didn't, where, having a black skin and not passing what they call a paper bag test. Yeah, that's a thing. Could get you killed. So we're not going to sit here and play this game of who is injured more. Stop it. You're advocating for criminal behavior and you're a judge. Oh, yeah, I'm putting that narrative all the way on the street. And Patty Cakes, thank you so much for joining us here and reposting the stream. And Black Empower says, this is that Gonzalez effect to get us emotional about illegals as if they don't have a home to go to. And they do. These people are not nomads. They are, I should say, they aren't nomads. They have a home. They left it illegally, by the way. Because see, when you come from, let's say you're coming from Ecuador, you got to go through all kinds of different countries before you get here. And if you're seeking asylum, you're supposed to seek it from the neighboring country. You're not supposed to just come to the United States and say, I'm seeking asylum. From where? Ecuador? If you don't go back home. Well, I just want a better life. That's great. You need to figure it out in Ecuador. And if you want to come here to the United States, do it the right way. But see, there was this thing a couple of years ago where you could claim refugee status and asylum status, and you could just claim a status, and then you were protected by temporary protected status. And then there was paroled in the United States. There were all these things and privileges given to people who were criminals. And we had other NGOs facilitating criminal activity. You protected these people with our tax dollars. What are we doing? Stop that. Okay. So this is how the media covered it. Bloomberg, that leans left bias, highlighted the specifics of the ruling, writing in their headline that the court lifted the migrant profiting ban, while BBC Center and Fox News focused only on the resuming raids in their headlines. Bloomberg also wrote that the courts have largely supported President Donald Trump's far reaching immigration agenda. Fox News included positive responses from Kavanaugh and the Department of Homeland Security, though it also included a brief quote from Sotomayor's dissent. And here's my thing again, we're either a nation of laws or we're not. And if we are not a nation of laws, what are we doing? We cannot cherry pick. I think that's the best term to use. Who gets to be here legally or illegally? Because we have immigration laws actually rooted and based in our Constitution under the Naturalization Act that specifically states that individuals cannot just come here, right? And that states can't make up immigration laws. The immigration laws are actually put into effect by our House and Senate, our legislatures, the legislative body. So when you hear of these legislatures, anyone in the House and Senate complaining about immigration and then fix it. Sir, ma'am, fix it. It's your job. It's actually your job because nobody else can fix it. The president cannot rewrite, fix, do anything with immigration. He can write executive orders like Obama did, and he got these people trapped into DACA, which is illegal, which is the Supreme Court ruled on that, but nobody's moving these people because everybody feels sorry for them, and I don't. Your parents brought you here illegally. That is not my problem. Never my problem. But Obama made it our problem. And the Supreme Court said it's illegal, but nobody's been deported. But nobody's been given a pathway to citizenship. And when President Trump was in office the first time, he sat down with Schumer. He sat down with Nancy Pelosi. Yes, you can Google this. And he said, bring me a bill that absolves these people, gives them a pathway to citizenship, and I will sign it. And they didn't do it because they didn't want him to have a win. That is how much these people are in their emotions, their feelings, and they love their money above all else. They could care less about the rest of the country. So right now, all of you people in House and in the Senate, I don't want to hear from you unless it's about you amending or writing legislation to fix immigration. And we're going to go over that a little bit here in the show. Sorry to rant, y'all, but I had to get that out because the crash outs are real and you're going to see them everywhere. But always remember, who are they crashing out about? Are we really going to crash out about protecting criminals? That's what we're doing? Is that where we're at right now? And you need to remember their face if they're in office. You need to remember all this stuff because it matters. It truly, truly matters, right? And with that, I want to talk a little bit about some elections that are coming up. We've got some elections coming up November 4th this year in different states. So first, I wanted to check out my own neck of the woods, as they like to say. It is the county, Henry County. And let's see. So let's scroll down here. Oops. There we go. So it looks like on September 16th, we have a special election, right? And then we have a special runoff, October 14th. We've got municipality general election and public service commissioner. That's what we're going to be voting on this November 4th. And that's going to be for Henry County. So if you live in Henry County, Georgia, definitely Pay attention, check out the website, see where you're supposed to go and vote, right? And I'm trying to make sure I highlight these in our areas because a lot of times, we're so focused and we're so distracted. I know you can be focused and distracted at the same time. You just be focused on things that aren't really relevant, but they really don't highlight the elections, and then they get upset about voter turnout. It's like, well, why aren't there more voters? Well, you really don't alert the public the way they need to. Like, I would love a postcard from Henry County, from the municipalities, that says, hey, voting's coming up, and these are the people that are running, and this is why we're running a special election. They think, okay, well, it's on the web and you should be able to get it, but not everybody is on the internet. And those are the things that you have to consider. So these are things that, we all need to be abreast of, you know, tell somebody, share it with somebody. I'm here in Georgia. If you are in any other state across the country, look up if you have elections going on this cycle because there's always an election going on, you guys. I'm serious. It's crazy. And, tell somebody, tell your neighbors and get outside and let people know what's going on. Now, I also wanted to check out New York as well, only because I know some people in New York that are running. We do have a candidate running for mayor, even though a lot of people haven't heard of her or from her. Her name is Shamishan, and she is running for mayor of New York. Yeah, nobody's heard of her, but there is somebody out there running. And her pledge is if she does not become the mayor, she wants to run. She also wants to be considered for a position of being an advocate, right? The people's advocate there and really stand in the gap because I feel sorry for New York. It's crazy. So apparently they've got their election coming up November 4th, right? And the election starts. Offices are mayor, comptroller, public advocate, and that's the one that she's also running for. She's running for public advocate and mayor simultaneously, and city council. So there's a total of 56 seats up for grabs within that election coming up. So New York, it is an extremely important election as you've seen some of the individuals that are running for mayor. Right now I've got the comptrollers up. Let's see. And those are the two candidates, Democratic candidates that are running, and you've got your two Republican candidates that are running. Conservative primary, so that Peter Kalfas, yeah. And a lot of times, people will run as a Democrat because people don't vote Republican. And it's an ideology and it's a sad situation that we've made. But again, you can check out Ballotpedia and go there and you can put in your local um I'm sorry, you can put in your state, you can put in your city, and it will bring up the elections in your area. Okay. So I'm encouraging everybody, please, please, please get out and vote. Tell people to get out and vote. Do not sit on the couch because these changes need you. These changes, and I'm saying that in a real way. These changes need your participation because without your participation, things stay the same. And we see what's happened so far, and it's very unfortunate because these politicians and somebody had said it best. I could think I'm gonna have to find that video, but they were talking about how politics has become celebrity. Now, this is prior to Donald Trump, right? Even though he had his own celebrity coming in political office, where, for some reason, these politicians, they act like little emperors and acting like, I can say what I want and I can do what I want. I'm like, no, no, you can't. You serve the people. Like, what are we talking about? What are we doing? So we really need to make sure that we are holding people's feet to the fire, right? And we're holding them accountable. They serve us. They do not rule over us. right? Because when politicians are ruling over us, then that's what they call tyranny, and we're not going to have it, not in this country, right? So with that, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I'm going to get into some more of the news on Tell It All Tuesday. But thank you guys so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News, and we will see you on the other side.
We've unified our end-to-end encrypted services to make them easier to use together, because privacy should be the default for everyone. With the new Proton ecosystem, you can add events to Proton Calendar automatically when you accept an invitation. Easily share large files with a secure Proton Drive link. Send secure Proton Drive links privately with Proton Mail.
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. And my name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. And so I came across this video from Candace Taylor. She is running, I'm not sure, I need to find out what position she's running for. I want to say she is running for the federal House seat here in Georgia, District 1, right, which is near Savannah. And her video is concerning to me because, the whole thing that just happened with the plant, right, with this Hyundai plant and, people getting deported and all these other things going on. She was like, yeah, but nobody's talking about this. And this is really important to our economy. And it affects more than Georgia. It really does. And because one of the things that I had actually found out is that we are here in Georgia the leading lumber supplier in the country. I did not know that. I was like, wow, I'm learning something new every day. But that is our predominant production here. And when you think about lumber, there's paper, houses, different construction buildings. Just, yeah, there's a lot of things that we use wood for. And I'm going to share the video with you guys and then discuss.
It's just the Hyundai plant that's drastically affecting the first district and actually a similar area of the paper mills that have closed in two different plants, one in Chatham County and then one in Riceboro. And then the one that's in Glenn County that there's rumor that they're considering closing, which is going to dramatically impact my first district, coastal region of Georgia that I am running to represent. And so today I read an article that came out that was actually posted, I guess it was a statement from Interfor. And if you don't know what Interfor is, just Google it, Interfor, and look at the ownership. Interfor are huge companies that produce wood. So they affect the timber industry, and they're Canadian owned. So we're worried about China coming in, and we're worried about South Korea with the Hyundai plant. But we also have an issue because Canada has taken over our timber industry here in coastal Georgia. In fact, there is a Inter4 right here in my small South Georgia county, Appling County. And if you look at all the counties, I should actually do that. I'll go and look at all 15 of my counties and we'll see how many have an Inter4 there. But there are a bunch. Almost every county has one. And so they just put a statement out and said that they were going to reduce from now till December their production by 12%. That's a lot. 12% is a lot. Okay. So they're reducing that across South Georgia, 12%. And that's going to affect our timber industry by our loggers, our landowners, our timber farmers, and our paper mills that we're getting to shut down. And one more is being rumored that they may be shut down. This is huge, huge. So we had Hurricane Helene that came in and caused major devastation a year ago, lost millions of dollars of timber across this district, and now we're seeing the implications from that. So while all the woke people out there want to push money to Ukraine and fund other people's wars, let's think about our own people with our own taxpayer money and how it affects our own economy. Why don't we do that? Why don't we think about ourselves? And let's put America first. Let's put Georgia first. Because I promise you, I'm going to do everything in my power to put the first district of Georgia first.
Yeah, and that's Candace, guys. She's running, and I'll figure out a way. I'll actually, add her link in so you guys can follow her. She did that video on TikTok, and I came across, and I was like, "What? Wait a minute, what?" Not only are they owned by Canada, 12%, and like she said, 12% is a lot. And that's how much the production is going to go down. I don't know why we as a country keep allowing other countries to be in industries here and basically hamstring us. Like, what are our politicians doing? That's the bigger question to me. This is what it comes back to. It comes back to politics. And people are always like, I don't like politics. Guess what? Politics is all around you. The chair you're sitting in this morning, the house you're waking up in, the school you send your kids to. Okay. All revolve around politics. And it started with a conversation and then a contract. Okay. And politics is involved in it because there's policies to ensure safety. Yeah, it's all around you. You can't escape it. Right. And so I went to ChatGPT and I was like, all right, kind of summarize what's going on. Let me make this a little bit bigger. But I said, can you please tell me if the company Inter4 plans to close some production plants in Georgia? Because I was, trying to find out. And it says, what's happening with Inter4's operation. So as of August 19, 2024, Inter4 Corporation officially announced that it would indefinitely curtail operations at 2 sawmills, one in Meldrum, Georgia, and another one in Summerville, South Carolina. This means production will be paused without a specific resumption date. So basically, it will look like a weird graveyard, right? Have you ever driven down the interstate and you're like, wow, that's a interesting, warehouse or mill or, something used to be produced there, right? But it's just sitting there. Nobody's sold it. Nobody's using it, but somebody owns it and they're just letting it sit there. I really do hope that it doesn't end up like that bad. So the company began immediately curtailing log deliveries with an orderly wind down of operations planned to be completed by the end of the third quarter 2024. So that was last year. These mills together represent a sizable operation, 330 million broad feet of combined annual capacity, and the curtailments affected approximately 180 employees. Inter4 indicated that there was no timeline for reopening the mills and that the curtailment could extend beyond 2024. Well, we're in 2025, right? depending on the future market conditions. And then it said, are there any new closures or plant changes since then? So a review of public available sources up till now shows no new announcements beyond 2024. Indefinite curtailment did not find additional confirmations of new closures, restructuring plans, or reactivations of the Georgia facilities after that announcement. So right now, there are plans, or rather ongoing operations, to indefinitely curtail operations at Interfor's Meldrum, Georgia sawmill, as well as Summerville in South Carolina as of August 2024. There is not a temporary shutdown, but a curtailment without a set restart date, which basically means it's sitting there. And we don't know if it's indefinite pause. Right? So no future updates on the status of these or other Georgia sites have been published since that announcement. Yeah. So they're just letting it sit there to waste away. But in the meantime, anything that relies on wood, especially in South Georgia, it's affecting the people here. But not only here, in other neighboring regions. You got to think about Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, North and South Carolina, Tennessee. It affects a lot more people. But what I find destructive and damaging is, right now we got issues with Canada. We do not have a great relationship with them right now. And for them to be able to come down and curtail and hamstring is horrible. And see, this is where I need to see government, show a little muscle and be like, okay, if you're not going to use it, then we're going to bring in our own people to use it. And you're just going to have to get up off the soil and go. Make a decision. You got 30 days. Either you're going to restart production or you're going to shut down production completely, and we're going to bring in another company to do it. And it's going to be American owned and operated. That's what we need to start doing, period. I don't want to rely on any other country being here, making sure that we're working. Like, what are we doing? And Cajun Lady says, good morning to my brothers and sisters. Good morning, Cajun Lady. I love the red, white, and blue hearts. Appreciate you. And Brother Mugo says, Grand Rising founder, Grand Rising to you, Brother Mugo. Thank you so much for joining us here. But yeah, like stuff like this, I'm telling you, I see stuff like this. I'm like, okay, I gotta tell you guys. Because nobody's really talking about this stuff. And I want to make sure that I'm bringing you the best information. Now, with that, I'm going to show you 2 videos of Chris Christie. Okay. Now, if anybody knows Chris Christie, he's not in the best shape. He could be in better shape. He could. We have the technology, sir. So there's no more excuses. But I find it fascinating who's coming after right now. So let's check this out.
You think Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is the best man to be leading public health? No. Answer the question.
It's not my decision.
No.
It's
You're supporting his decision. You're supporting his decision.
I support his decision.
You just called him a humble, qualified man. So you think he's the best person to lead public health in this country?
I think he's the best person.
He's a joke.
Okay. Now, I find that fascinating. Because if anybody has seen Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he looks like an Adonis. And I've met this man in person. He is very much in shape. Like, it's kind of funny to me because the way his body shaped, he's kind of like a little Hercules, in my opinion. It's funny to see him with suits on because he has to wear suit jackets that are really big and they don't really fit his body because he's got these muscles. And I'm like, really? Chris Christie, you're saying that he's not the best qualified person for the job? I think it's cool to have somebody be the human health secretary that's healthy. How about that? How about that, sir? How about that? And Brother Mugo says, well, that's justice. And no one wants justice. They don't. I don't know what they want, really. I guess it's gotta be anarchy. Because nobody really cares the way they should, in my opinion. In my opinion. So I didn't do that in here. I'm sorry, you guys. I was like looking through some of my information. Usually I'm a little bit better about making sure that you guys have. Okay. Just checking out. Yeah, I was, going through, obviously, doing my thing with the Supreme Court ruling. And I wanted to make sure I gave you guys the best information. Brother Muko says they want more money for more abuse. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because here's the thing, and that's why I think part of them are mad too. Um, I didn't put it on here, but I was watching something. I want to say it was in Chicago, and they were upset because they didn't have the funding. Right? They were like, "Well, we need funding to continue to help these people." I'm like, "Help them do what? They're first of all, they're here illegally, and you don't want to even help the citizens that are here legally. But you want money to help somebody here that's here illegally? Like, what are we doing? Stop that. You stop. Bad. All right, now I gotta show you this other video of Chris Christie. Brace yourself, you guys.
Oh, Trump 2028! Christie right here. Go Trump, Trump 2032!
This is the same person who said that Kennedy was not qualified. The same person. And I think he's a Republican, by the way. Yeah, because he ran for president. Yeah, Christie. RFK isn't qualified. Okay, this is good grief, right? I shouldn't be laughing at humans. I should not. But the reason why I had to bring that up, and then I'm gonna play you a compilation video, is because what's going on right now, in my opinion, it's very distracting, right? We've got immigration, we've got issues definitely going on all over the place, but nobody's really focusing and looking in on like places like Georgia, right? Or looking at our health. Whenever I see things that are just really kind of out there, out of control, I'm always like, okay, what are you trying to do with our health? Or get us distracted from our health? And Brother Muko says it's backwards and disgusting. Yeah. Occasionally he says 100%. So I'm going to play this video, and I put this compilation video together of Bill Gates, and it goes through a little bit of past things that he said all the way up until present until the dinner that he was invited to with President Trump.
Genetically modified organisms, and we're injecting them in little kids' arms. We just shoot them right into the vein. So this equation has four factors, a little bit of multiplication. So you've got a thing on the left, CO2, that you want to get to zero, and that's going to be based on the number of people, the services each person's using on average, the energy on average for each service, and the CO2 being put out per unit of energy. So let's look at each one of these and see how we can get this down to zero. Probably one of these numbers is going to have to get pretty near to zero.
Through his foundation, Bill Gates has helped to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. Well, today at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, he announced that his project called CEPI, or the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations, has $460 million. He sat down with CBS News to talk about how that money will go to preparing for the next great epidemic.
The idea is to take a new way of building vaccines.
Now I had to pause it really quick. This was prior to 2020. So I just want to preface that with everybody. So this was before the pandemic, or as some people like to refer to as pandemic, happened. So just letting you know.
Vaccines that could let us develop in less than a year a novel vaccine. They're called DNA RNA vaccines, and so we'll fund a few projects in the same situation we were in before, where it takes years to build a new vaccine. But the scientific idea of these new platforms could radically change that. so that a lot of the steps are sitting there ready. The factory piece, understanding the regulatory piece, and you just have to plug in some information, do some quick safety profiles, and then you can get into manufacturing quite rapidly. Anyway, so antibodies, antivirals, we think we can also have very early in an epidemic a thing you can inhale that will mean that you can't be infected, a blocker, an inhaled blocker. We also need to fix the three problems with vaccines. The current vaccines are not infection blocking. They're not broad, so when new variants come up, you lose protection. And they have very short duration, particularly in the people who matter, which...
Now, you just heard him in the previous section talk about all the things that they want to put in place. We got everything in place. We're going to move it fast. We're going to do this. We're going to do that, right? Now, in this one, he's saying that there's a problem with these vaccines and they're just not effective. What? What? You literally spent billions of dollars to have us mentally brainwashed into believing that all of your vaccines work, and now you're talking about inhalants? I was just talking last week about an area in St. Louis where they literally used biological weaponry on a community, basically to see what would happen, denying that they've harmed these individuals, right, with an inhalant. So when I hear stuff like this, I'm like, wow, you really think that we are not paying attention to you? We get it, that you just want to kill everybody off and you believe they're useless leaders, but it's crazy. Brother Muko, they didn't say Project SEBI. It's SESI. SESSI or something like that. Yes, it's SESI, not SEBI. But yeah. And Cajun Lee says Bill Gates is an evil eugenics. Yeah, and that's what they believe. Eugenicism is crazy. And Brother Muko says he needs to die real quick. I'm just saying. Really? And Brother, population control, people, we need a system. If justice, global system, okay, we need a system. If justice, global system of justice, yeah, we do need a system of justice. But that's what we supposedly have, right? We've got a Supreme Court. At the bottom of the totem pole, we have the administrative body, which is the presidency, the executive branch. And then we have the legislative branch at the top. And the legislative branch is actually there for protection, right? They are actually our lawmakers, and they are supposed to make sure that the laws are upheld, right? But what we've seen is people want to be activists as politicians, as opposed to really ensuring that the public is safe with the laws that we have in place. Because we already have the Constitution, but they've introduced so many policies and they circumvent the Constitution. It's like, well, I don't like that part of the Constitution, so I'm just going to write this policy over here. And this is why our country is so distorted, because they keep writing policies that go against the Constitution and nobody's calling them on it, right? Because see, the real puppet masters in the background giving these people money to do these things, to basically sell their souls, are who's really running our country. And it's really, really sad. So he wants a humanless society. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. They only want 500 million people on the planet. Anybody remember the Georgia Guidestones? They got destroyed. Yeah, they did that. Black Empower says, the face of evil right here. Yep, anti-life. He is actually anti-life. So let's finish with the video.
Old people, and every one of those things is fixable. In fact, doing that work is going to help vaccinology very, very broadly.
What did you think when you saw this whole row of tech bros at the inauguration, front and center? What did you say to yourself when you witnessed that?
They make their own decisions.
You must have thought something, though, when you saw that.
No, I wouldn't have predicted it. And yet, when you have a new administration, they're going to wield a lot of authority, including over those companies. I'm not really in their game anymore. My focus is the foundation work. So, my mindset isn't quite, okay, let's defend the company.
Were you invited to the inauguration?
I bet I could have been there. I mean,
you could have finagled an invitation.
I think so. And my second career is innovation, innovating in health in areas like vaccines or gene editing, and the president and I are.
Now, he said vaccines and gene editing. Now, weren't we told that gene editing was a myth? Weren't we told that that was a farce? I don't know about you guys, but I got into some pretty heated discussions with people. Gene editing isn't a thing. It doesn't exist. He just said that's where he's at. Gene editing, vaccines. Like that's his lane. Now, we had Fauci actually testify before Congress that there's no gain of function going on. What do you think gene editing is? They work in tandem. They work in tandem. You have to have the gain of function to figure out how to edit the gene. They work in tandem. But they don't want us believing any of that. They want us just, asleep. And Cajun lady says it's a depopulation cult. It is definitely that. And Carlos says Bill Gates is a sick, sorry excuse for a person with a God complex. He does have that. And Cajun lady says this cult always tell you what they're doing. Pay attention. Yeah, they are telling us. So he's letting us know that through vaccines and gene editing, your genome, our perfect DNA that we were given, has been disrupted. And they want to continue to disrupt it with mRNA, as you heard him in the previous videos. See, I put this compilation together because I was just sitting there over the weekend. I was like, wait a minute. He said this here and he said this. And I was like, now he's at the dinner saying this? Oh, he's just letting the whole cat out the bag. He's just like, yeah, I don't care anymore. I'm here at the dinner. I'm just going to let you know what we're doing. Oh, yeah. My foundation, and by the way, we're dealing with, vaccinations and gene editing. What? You just kind of casually slip that in? Really? Brother Muko says, yep. Yeah, that's what they're doing.
Talking about taking American innovation to the next level to cure and even eradicate some of these diseases. He mentioned polio, which is one that we're close. We don't need new science on that one. For some like HIV and sickle cell, we do need new science, but the U.S.
Okay. Now, when he says HIV and sickle cell, there's one particular population that sickle cell affects the most, and it is the Black population, right? And they've never really come up with a cure for it. And last week, we did have a discussion about, cures and treatments. And I want to say I think it was Black Empower he brought up. He says, you know what? There's no money in the cure. The money's in the treatment. So right now he's saying there's not enough research on that. So who are you going to use for your guinea pigs now? Because at this point, HIV should have been eradicated because it deals with your immune system. You got to remember, AIDS is autoimmune deficiency syndrome. That means your immune system is deficient. What are we talking about? And autoimmune is basically a reaction that your immune system is having. What are we talking about? You're setting us up. And you want our tax dollars to go into grants to pay you for research? Okay, President Trump, if you're listening, yeah, the person to the left of your wife needs to be thrown into prison. And here's my case for it. practicing medicine without a license. Because during the pandemic, people just kept going to him like he was just the foremost expert. He's not a doctor. He's not a physician. But yet people kept going to him for medical advice. He doesn't have a license. And on that basis alone, he should be thrown into prison practicing medicine without a license on the general public, by the way. And we have tons of videos out there. Now, a lot of people may say, well, your argument, that doesn't hold water. Yes, it does. I'm a paralegal. I cannot give people legal advice because I do not have a license to practice the law. I'm not an attorney. I can work with attorneys. I can give people my general feedback on something, but I cannot tell them legally what to do. I cannot give legal advice. That would be an unauthorized practice of law. And in this instance, unauthorized practice of medicine. Just saying. And Brother Mughal says, lies, lies, lies. And Carlos said, bingo. He can't keep a virus off of his computers, but he can cure real viruses, right? Make it make sense. Exactly. And Brother Mughal says, backwards. Shout out to the Redemption Vision. Thank you. Well, let's finish this video up.
Has the seeds that in the same way that Warp Speed took those seeds and put them together, I think something fantastic can be done.
What do you think?
Yeah. So again, that's the video that I made on TikTok. And if you go to Unfiltered Vision News, you will see that video. It's got some good responses. So, hey, take it, repost it, share it with everybody. Have a good conversation around it because this is an individual that has really put a lot of effort, I should say, into making the public believe that he is there for the public, right? To do good by the public. That has always been his stance, right? We need to follow the science and we're here to help people. No, you're not here. And he talked about the seeds, right? The seeds that have already been planted with Warp Speed, right? Warp Speed was supposed to be used to help people. It didn't help anybody. What it did was it introduced, right, in my opinion, a vaccine that went out too fast. And even though there were failed trials, it was put out anyway. They denied us working medications that had been working for decades that had actually won Nobel Peace Prizes. Because here's the thing, you can't introduce a vaccine, and this is by our own laws, you can't introduce a vaccine without stating there's nothing else that can help, right? The vaccine's your last ditch effort. And what they did was they criminalized treatments and cures to put out their vaccine. That is extremely nefarious. And they used Warp Speed to do it. That's what happened. And Brother Mughal said, introduced more harm internationally. Yeah. Intentionally. Sorry. Yeah. They did. They did it intentionally. And we saw countless people pass away or be injured. And they're still injured today trying to fight to get their lives back. I mean, what are we doing? And he still wants to sit there at the table with a straight face and say all the good things that he's doing. Okay, look, President Trump, again, if you don't put this guy in prison for the crimes against humanity that he's already done, I don't want to see him do anything else. I want him in jail. Not jail, prison. And I'm not talking about, Martha Stewart jail. I'm talking about real prison. Like he's going to have to be locked up from the general public, right? But he needs to be in prison forever. Like never to touch anything again. And Brother Mughal says, is this not an act of war? It is. Well, war it begins with words, right? But what you're referring to would more so be a war in a specific area. Now, we could call this a medical classification of war, right? That's where you get the crimes against humanity because he's specifically targeting humanity with something saying, hey, you need this to protect you when he knows it won't. And if he has that foreknowledge that it's not going to protect us, it's not going to help us, in talking with a forked tongue, making us believe that it will, yes, we are at war. Not just ideologically, but physically. It is what it is. And Brother Mungo says, oh no, he needs to be in gene pop. Yeah. Medical apartheid. Exactly. Because what's going to happen now, and it did happen during, I want to say, the pandemic. Oh, a lot of people stopped going to get treatments if they were getting cancer treatments or other types of treatments. They refused to go to the hospital in some instances because they didn't want to. They didn't want to have to take the vaccine because they were being forced to take the vaccine in order to get a treatment. But we're finding out now that some of the individuals that were going through cancer treatments, their cancer got worse or whatever, that did take the shot. Allegedly. I'll throw it out there, allegedly. But there were other people that just stayed home and they unfortunately passed away because they did not want to have to be berated to just get the treatment that they had already been getting. And Brother Mickle says, yes, exactly. Yeah. So it is a war. It is a complete war. But nobody wants to call it that. Nobody wants to call it what it is because, who wants to say that you're at war with the American public? Not just in the medical arena, right? We're at war in the immigration arena, right? And I've already talked to you guys about replacement migration. That's a real thing. It was put into effect in the year 2000. I've showed you the documents, documented, right? So between our medical, our immigration, even our financial, right? We've got other countries here, Canada, for example, here in Georgia, stopping production. How are you going to stop wood production when we have the forestry? When that's one of our main industries here in the state of Georgia? Really, you're going to hamstring us? See, this is the stuff that needs to stop. So any lawmakers listening in Georgia, we're going to have to reach out to Burt Jones because, he's running for governor. He's the current lieutenant governor. He needs to be asked the question, sir, what are you going to do about this? This is a mess. This is a whole mess that you need to fix. See, what I would like is I would like to not have any foreign, right, companies here in our country, on our soil, making their products. Because obviously, if they're making their products on our soil, they feel like, okay, we can make the rules. We can hire who we want. We can do, even if it's illegal, right? Yeah, we need to stop that. Brother Mukul says, every area of people activity. Yeah. We need to just take our country back, period. I mean, that's truly my focus. Now, I wanted to check out the FDA because, you just heard Gates, right? And Christie. Because Christie, he can't stand Kennedy for some reason. I'm like, bro, really? What's going on with you? But you gotta be a hater, right? Everybody needs a hater. So I guess Kennedy, he's got all of his haters. So I wanted to check out something because I needed more clarification and understanding on something. And so part of that was the mission of the Food and Drug Administration, right? Like, why do we have them if we're truly not being protected? That was my question. So The U.S. Food and Drug Administration's mission in 2021, as established and reaffirmed, was to protect and promote public health by ensuring the safety, efficacy, and security of human and veterinary drugs, biological products, and medical devices. Okay, so that's their job. Like, that's their whole job, is to basically make sure anything that is being put out into the general public is safe. That's the gig. Okay. And by ensuring the safety of the nation's food supply, cosmetics, and products that emit radiation, right? That's their job. The mission was central to the agency's work, including its critical role during the COVID-19 pandemic, where it was responsible for reviewing and authorizing vaccines, treatments, and diagnostic tests through mechanisms like emergency use authorizations. The agency's efforts were also guided by its commitment to advancing public health by facilitating the development and availability of innovative, safe, and effective medical products and a safe food supply. This mission was supported by a network of laboratories and centers, such as the Oncology Center of Excellence, which worked to improve cancer drug development and patient outcomes. And Cajun lady says, FDA is yet another scam that Americans pay the cost for. Exactly. Exactly. And thank you so much for joining us and reposting the stream. That is, let's just say the crux of the matter. Because I was like, okay, what are they saying about themselves? I mean, obviously they can't talk bad about themselves, right? They shouldn't. But then I had asked it another question. I said, so I'll ask it this way. Why did RFK, do his name right? Why did RFK end red dyes? Right? We've heard a lot about the red dyes. He also went after seed oils, right? I don't know if any of you guys have been to, I've been there, and their fries are now tallow fries, right? Have you heard McDonald's talking about tallow fries? Have you heard anybody talking about using beef tallow on their fries outside of Steak and Shake? I haven't. If you guys have, let me know. That means all of these other businesses out there, they're okay using seed oils. They said they don't want you to be healthy, especially McDonald's. Like, I've come across some videos where there's this one gentleman, I'm not sure who he is. He should be so famous, but he keeps the food for like months. He's had a Big Mac, I think, for 9 months, you guys, and it still is not disintegrated. Still, it's like intact. Like, looks like it just came off the production line. Stop eating McDonald's. Stop it. Do not put that stuff in your body. It's not food. It is not food, seriously. So it says Robert F. Kennedy Jr., as U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services, has pursued the removal of artificial dyes, including red dyes, from the food supply, right? Citing potential health risk, a primary reason for targeting these additives is evidence suggesting a link between synthetic dyes and adverse health effects such as cancer in animal studies and neural behavioral issues like ADHD in children. Specifically, red number 3 was banned due to studies showing it caused thyroid tumors in male rats, leading to its revocation under the FDA's Delaney Clause, which prohibits carcinogenic substances in food. Now, he just got there. So that means red dyes have been okay in our products. I don't know if you remember, I forget what the lady's name was, but she went after Kellogg's and she was just fighting. Now, this was before President Trump got elected. So if you go back, I would say maybe May, June last year. She's fighting. Kellogg just brushed her off like, well, whatever. We don't have to do what you say. And the reason why they feel that way is because a lot of these CEOs, a lot of these companies work along with the FDA, right? to get their stuff passed. The FDA has been nothing more than a rubber stamp. They have not been a protective agency like they're supposed to. And RFK is actually holding people's feet to the fire. That's why they don't like him. That is why they do not like him. Because you got to remember, he's an attorney and he beat a lot of these people. He beat a lot of them. Now, it says some experts argue that scientific basis for a broad ban is weak, really, noting that cancer links were observed at doses far exceeding typical human consumption and that human studies have produced mixed results. Despite this, California has already banned red number 3 in 2023, and the FDA finalized its ban effective 2027. So they still are not immediately going to do it. They work for him, which Kennedy has pushed to accelerate. He's being fought within the agency that he's over. They are fighting to keep this poison in our food supply. This should have been like, oh, cool, done. Sir, we're on it yesterday. 2027? You want us to deal with this for another, year and a half, almost 2? What? Really? Like everybody, this is why he's going after these people so hard. That's what I need y'all to know. This is why he's going after them so hard. And Black Empower says, during COVID, Bill Gates, who's not a doctor, and Fauci, who's a fraud, became the only credible sources for medicine. How's that work? Exactly. Because with Fauci, and thank you for bringing that up, Black Empower, he does have a doctorate. Now, his doctorate is in physician studies, but he never had a patient, right? So he never practiced medicine. He had the ability to practice medicine. And that's why they were able to use him at the NIH, because he had the ability. It's almost like having an attorney that works in-house, right? You've passed the bar, you've got your Juris Doctorate, and you can practice law, right? But you don't necessarily ever have to represent anyone in court in order to give legal advice. That's kind of like what Fauci is. And they used that and his status to manipulate. He doesn't care about people. He just cares about the money. Because if it was about people, that remdesivir would have never been put on the market. Right. And also the other medication that he had, I want to say, oh gosh, I forget the name of it, but it was for AIDS. And it was put out at the time. And I want to say Freddie Mercury, he took it. He died. Magic refused to take it. He's still with us. Right. Yeah. So just because people are in the medical field doesn't always make them right. We always have to continue to ask questions. And so, I also wanted to see some other things in the CDC, and they have, abortion surveillance findings, because this is another thing that Kennedy brought up, talking about how they're, they're really okay with abortion. And Uncle Cool Water, you're hilarious. You going with it. You're going with it. I got you. So it says, and Fauci was appointed. He wasn't elected, right? Or chosen by the people. Simply a pharmaceutical implant. Exactly. He was just there to carry their water, or I should say their death, right? To the rest of us, acting like he was just the foremost expert. Because he even kept going back and forth. Right. So, and the reason why he kept going back and forth is, well, there was a time where I did say, it might not work, but it was working. But yeah, and they play this dance, and they know if they do the right way, the people will not look at them as the murderers that they are. They're murderers. You kill people. You stood by and you let it happen. And you're okay with it, because you're a part of that mindset to depopulate the planet. That's probably the next thing I'm going to put together, is find some depopulation clips and put that together. So in 2022, there were 383 legal induced abortions. Just in 2022, over 500,000. So that was over 500,000 people that weren't born. you guys. I won't get too much further into it, but I just wanted to bring that up. There are people that applaud this, and it's crazy to me. And then I looked at also article I came across, the depopulation of civilized nations. Now, this is interesting, this document, because this document is from 1895, not the year 2000, not 1995, 1895. And Brother Muko says, and founder, that supersized movie where the guy eats McDonald's that was made over 10 years ago. Yeah. I think he ended up gaining weight and he had a lot of different medical issues, but he made the movie to prove the point that this food that we're eating isn't food. And I'll make sure to add these links, but I just want you guys to see this. Depopulation of civilized nations. Again, this was done in 1895, right? And it was by a gentleman by the name of H.B. McClevin, medical doctor, MD, from Sheraton, Iowa. It says, you see the title I gave. Oh, sorry. You see, the title I have given to this paper is The Depopulation of Civilized Nations. Probably it would be more proper to put it the cessation of increase of population. Wow. For it is not at so much the causes that depopulate that I wish to speak of as the causes which hinder the increase of the population. Wow. Okay. So we still have people in place like this with this mentality. And Brother Muko says, if I'm not mistaken, he passed away. Yeah. Berlin Conference, 1884. Yeah. This is interesting that he said it that way, that I wish to speak of as the causes which hinder the increase of the population. He's saying the same thing. He's just wording it in a way that people can't catch it. Right? And Brother Muga says, this is not a game for us. No, it's not. And this has been going on for a long time. It just keeps resurging itself in different ways. I came across so many videos where Bill Gates is talking about the population and how we need to reduce the population, and the population is just going so fast. What? You're not God. You don't get to decide who lives or dies. But unfortunately, you've been given means and opportunity to sit at the table, and I'm calling for your arrest. Straight up. You need to be locked in prison. And anyone who thinks the way you do needs to be locked away, because you are not a help to our society. You are a hindrance. Absolute hindrance. And Black Empower says the COVID vaccine was a government pharmaceutical money grab and a death sentence. Definitely. And Brother Mughal says, I feel you found but there's others out there like us that are calling for his death. Okay. I'm not calling for death, but I am calling for his arrest. Right? Because his life is in God's hands. But I cannot sit here and go along with, right, the crimes that are being committed. I have to call out the wrong. And he's doing wrong to other people. There are countries where he's banned from being in. Just saying. And I wanted to look at a little bit more of this article. It's not the whole thing, but just looking at this section here, it says, I might hear state that only 1/5 of the women are able to nurse their offspring as nature intended. No wonder that 26% of the children die in their first year. For no food man can compound is equal to that nature provides. Now he's even admitting that is better for nature. Okay? Why this inability to nurse our children? In the first place, the waist and breast of our women are compressed by tight lacing, tight clothing, corsets, stays, and all that is necessary to make a fashionable figure. This causes chronic induration of the breast and has a tendency to prevent secretion and, in many cases, abscesses form. Right. Because if you wear corsets too long, your body basically collapses and you can no longer sit up straight. Definitely proven. And Carlos says Gates was Gates' father was a part of Margaret Sanger's crew of eugenicists. And Walter Mason from YouTube says, "Good morning, family. Founder, bringing that truth once again. Thank you for doing what you do." Thank you so much, Walter. Appreciate that. And Brother Muko says, "Put him in general population. We will handle it straight face." Yeah. But this, like, again, this article is from 1895. So over 100 years ago. And nobody's talking about this. What, 130 years ago? But we're not talking about this. That's this mindset that we've seen kind of abscess into our communities, right? That's the scary part. So we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to get into some more of this news from all sides. You know what I'm saying? Get caught up in what's going on in the world. And thank you guys for, again, joining me here and engaging with me with your comments and really having a full conversation, because this is serious. Because again, while they've got everybody distracted outside, right, with a lot of the illegal immigration wanting us to side with criminal behavior. So we've got that aspect of it. On the other side of it, I still want us paying attention to our health and well-being, right? Because they have to figure out some kind of way to control us and distract us. So we will see you guys on the other side.
At All Sides, we believe unbiased news doesn't exist. To get more clicks and make more money, media outlets often report news with a left, right, or sensational slant, either to suit their own agenda or because by telling us what we want to hear, we'll come back for more. Several news outlets in the center do a good job of portraying both sides equitably, but for the most part, American news media is biased. Bias isn't necessarily a bad thing. The key is to get multiple perspectives. But making matters worse, social media and internet search results are heavily filtered, showing us the most popular opinion or results that match our preferences and make us happy. That means we're all living in filter bubbles, where we're only exposed to viewpoints we already agree with, making us less informed and less tolerant of different people and ideas. At All Sides, we give bias ratings for hundreds of media outlets. By freeing people from filter bubbles and providing different perspectives, we can all be better equipped to understand the world and each other. So how do we do it? All Sides has created a patented, fair, transparent process to rate the media bias of hundreds of news outlets and writers. We assess each media source and rate them as far left, lean left, center, lean right, or far right, allowing you to quickly identify different perspectives. All Sides is constantly evolving our media bias engine. The more you participate, the better our ratings will be, and the better our news coverage will be. Go to allsides.com to get involved.
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. And my name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. I wanted to read some of the comments that had come in from Michonne Flips Red, and she said, Thank you. Thank you, Michelle, for joining us here this morning. And she says, these are crucial discussions we avoid. We are experiencing the ramifications of our decisions. And she encourages everybody to stay focused. And she says, I am trying with all the distractions. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to take in. But you know what? I think we can do it. I think we can do it. And Brother Mooku, he's got the mean faces. He says it's a setup. Yeah, some of it is. And Walter Mason says, LOL, Brother Muko said, put them in general population and let the convict justice commence. Right? Yeah. Yeah, because some people, they look, that's why they don't put them in the general population. They even stated, they're like, yeah, we can't put you outside with everybody else. We might not find you. Or if we do, it might not go well. So with that, let's check out All Sides. And this is one of the outlets that I use, and definitely check them out. Make sure you look at their content. And the reason why I do like All Sides is because it is crowdsourced, right? As you saw in the commercial. And the other thing I like about All Sides is this is something that you can actually invest in. And I'm actually an investor myself with All Sides. So definitely check them out at allsides.com. And they give you the perspective, right, left, center, and center right. Now, this is interesting. It says Trump claims lesser things like domestic incidents are skewing DC crime statistics. What I find interesting here is I don't see anything from the right. Typically, when he's, doing anything, especially like this, you're going to see something from the right, but I don't see that this time. So, President Trump, during the Religious Liberty Commission's meeting on Monday, claimed that Washington, D.C.'s reported crime drop of 87% is understated, as lesser things like domestic incidents are counted in the statistics. So, key quote, Trump said, there's no crime. They said crime is down 87%. I said, no, no, no. It's more than 87%. Virtually nothing and much lesser things. Things that take place in the home they call crime. They'll do anything they can to find something. If a man has a little fight with a wife, they say, this is a crime. See? So now I can't claim 100%. He's not wrong, but domestic violence is counted as a crime if, and I'm going to preface this with an if there is charges, right? Because there are sometimes with married couples, they do get into disputes and it is domestic violence, but the wife does not want to formally charge her spouse or vice versa, right? Because sometimes it happens where women do beat up their husbands. It is what it is. So depending on if there were charges filed, that would have to be looked at, right? They would have to look at the amount of incidents that happened, right? That they came in, there was a phone call, somebody called, whether it was a neighbor or whether it was somebody in the house. And then if charges were filed to carry out that domestic violence abuse case. But I'm still seeing 87% down as a win. I mean, I know you want 100%, and he may be referring to violent crime, right? But if they're looking at crime as a whole, 87% still a win. So for context, crime in D.C. has fallen since President Trump deployed the National Guard and federalized local law enforcement on August 11th. Data from the Metropolitan Police Department has shown that property crimes have fallen significantly more than violent crimes. How the media covered it. The story was widely covered by outlets on the left. All sides did not find courage from the right. Coverage from the right. That's what I was saying. I was like, where's Fox News on this? What are we doing? So most outlets that covered the story characterized Trump's description of a little fight with his wife as domestic violence and noted his description of it as a lesser crime in headlines. Now, NBC News that leans left bias ran the headline, Trump appears to dismiss domestic violence as a lesser crime. The Washington Post wrote the headline, Trump downplays domestic disturbances as he touts DC crime reduction. And this is sad. Now, you are speaking to somebody whose sister unfortunately lost her life to domestic violence. And, there are times, and this is before my sister passed, she did not file charges on her husband at the time when they did get into altercations. And this happened prior to them even being married, right? She unfortunately had battered women syndrome, and she believed that she could save him from himself. She believed that her love, would make him stop, and it didn't. And he ended up ending her life. Okay. So I take domestic violence extremely seriously. But the problem comes back to how serious are we taking these disturbances, right? Because when you say domestic violence, that's very broad because that can range from anything from an argument to an altercation to a death, right? And there's levels. And there have been times when individuals have been removed from the home and they come back and they actually take the life of the person that they've been violent against. So we do have to take it seriously. And Walter Mason says, founder of OMG Son, I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you so much. But I share that because it's something I take seriously. So I do want the president to rethink it. Domestic violence can be devastating for the person that is going through it and the people that it affects outside of that house that are family members, right? Like I shared my situation. So again, I'm glad that crime is down 87%, but I know this is something that they're going to use definitely against the president in how he looks at domestic violence. And trust me, there's probably going to be a whole firestorm of conversations that you're going to see around this. But again, in my opinion, this will be a distraction. It truly will be. I don't want it to be, but it will be. And Michelle says, back in the day, we were told to love them out of violence. Yes, exactly. And that created this whole culture, right, of people who are enablers and codependents. And it's taught in church, it's taught in our lives, men and women, right? That if you get with someone, you need to love them to the status that they need to be in, as opposed to saying, okay, you need to be there when I get to you, right? You need to have the ability to love yourself and love me. And if you can't, that's fine, but I can't make you love me. And if you choose to do me harm, I can't not love you to stop harming me. We don't have that conversation. We just tell people, hang in there, it'll get better. It won't. Because the minute somebody crosses that threshold, it's over. If that's allowed, right? You might get out of that relationship before it gets too far. But once it gets to that point, there is no return. There isn't. And a lot of people say, oh, yeah, no, there's not. Stop that. Stop enabling bad behavior and stop being a codependent, thinking that you can be the hero in the story and save someone from themselves. Absolutely not. And Mark from the Soil, thank you so much for reposting the stream. Sorry, I keep going back and forth. I'm trying to make sure I get all the comments in. And Shay Michonne says, keep praying. The men will change. Christianity will say, yeah. And they will change, right? But they may not change in that relationship. That's all I'm saying. That's what I'm talking about. They need to be out of that relationship. And Trump announces America Prays initiative to encourage religious practices. All right. And Minnesota Fats, thank you so much for reposting the stream and joining us on X. Go back, make sure I don't have any other comments here. And Michonne says, I thought I could do that. And it was a nightmare. Yeah. But like I said, we are encouraged to do it. But I really don't think people see that part. I actually wrote a book called Stealing Lives. That, just walking through my own journey of abuse and really looking at the forgiveness part of it, but not only the forgiveness part of it, the character flaws that we carry, right? Being enablers and codependents, and getting to the other side and getting into that victory to have a healthy relationship. It's getting to that part, and we all can do it. It's just a matter of doing it, right? So Trump announces America Prays initiative to encourage religious practices. So President Trump on Monday announced the America Prays initiative to encourage religious practice ahead of the 250th anniversary of the United States. So, speaking at the Museum of the Bible, Trump said the initiative encourages Americans to dedicate 1 hour each week to praying for the country. He also said the Department of Education will soon issue new guidance protecting the right to prayer in our public schools. Trump also donated his family's Bible to the museum. In May, Trump established the Religious Liberty Commission through executive order. Its purpose is to advise the White House Faith Office and the Domestic Policy Council on religious liberty policies of the United States. The commission is in response to what the White House says was federal, state, and local policies that have threatened America's unique and beautiful tradition of religious liberty, and attempts to remove religion entirely from public life. And this is how the media covered it. The Washington Times, that leans right bias, framed the initiative as part of Trump's broader efforts to protect Americans' religious freedom. Daily Beast, that's left, highlighted criticism that the initiative removes religious diversity in favor of one set of Christian beliefs. Newsweek, that centered, outlined the legal balance between religious expression and the constitutional prohibition of government-sponsored prayer. It highlighted other attempts by Texas and Oklahoma to bring back religious practices in schools. Yeah, so this is a lot to take in, you guys. Okay. I'm just trying to see if any comments came in. And Shimashon says, great. Here's my feedback on this. Now, this could be good and bad, right? Because we are not a theocracy. We are a republic, okay? And because we are a republic, the way our Constitution is written is that we have freedom of religion. When our government gets involved in religion, right? That to me is a very scary place. And a lot of people would say, but you're a Christian. You should want this. No, I don't. I don't want this. I'm grateful that he has a heart for God. I'm grateful that there are people that are praying for him. I don't want this. Because what if somebody Muslim becomes our president? Right? What if somebody who worships Satan becomes our president? So we're not thinking downstream. Now, in all of that, I'm putting on not just my hat as a Christian. I'm looking at this from a legal perspective. I'm also looking at this from a political perspective. Because you have to have all three. When you are looking at bringing in one religion to dominate. And Michonne says, she says, I fought for that in the late 90s choices. Which God? Exactly. Because see, we have God little g and we have God big G. So who we praying to? I'm saying, even in Christianity, it gets very controversial. How do we pray? We've got different sects. You got people that are Pentecostal, that are Baptist, that are Catholic, and they all pray differently. They all practice differently. They all interpret the Bible differently. I myself, yeah, I'm a disciple who were later called Christians at Antioch. Yeah, that's the disciple I am. Matthew 28, 18 through 20, me. Okay. And Jesus said himself, give to Caesar what is Caesar's and give to God what is God's. We have to be very careful when we are bringing in religion to the political arena. Because what you don't want to do is establish something that later on can be altered and used against the people. Yeah, Michonne says it's complicated. It is very complicated. And it is something that I don't take lightly. I think it's one thing for the president to say, hey, we're encouraging everybody to pray. We know we are a nation that has religious freedom, but we are, asking everybody to pray for our country going up to the 250th anniversary. We do again. We have religious freedom. I'm not sure how you pray. I know how I pray, but we're just asking everybody to, really focus on encouragement in that prayer. That's one thing. This is something different because now you're tiptoeing. You're really tiptoeing in that space of saying, do it this way. Right? When we have freedom of religion for a reason. You don't want to go to that space of theocracy. Now, a lot of people will say, yeah, our schools fell apart when we took prayer out of the schools. It wasn't so much taking prayer out of the schools as it was we basically took standards out of the schools. And what I mean by that is we took away people being up moral, right? And having decent morals. You let the pedophiles in the school and you knew there were pedophiles and you allowed them to be the principals and the counselors and the teachers. Just saying. You did that. You did not protect the children and you're still not protecting them. By the way, children are being abused every day in school. By the way, that's still happening. Now, that doesn't come with religion. That comes with making sure that criminals are not in our schools around our babies. What are we talking about? What are we doing? Right? It's that stuff. It's those conversations that we need to have. So I know a lot of people will say, well, you being a Christian, you should support this. I don't support that. Right? I know that in Oklahoma, and I think the other place they talked about in school, where they want to hang up the Ten Commandments as a document, right? Not in religion, but in where our, how should I say it, our principles of the country come from. We'll just say that, right? Like, don't steal from your neighbor. There are certain things you shouldn't do, right? Do this, but don't do that. So they want to use the Ten Commandments in that way. I'm like, okay, if you're looking at it as a historical document that helped to frame our Constitution, okay, I get it. But there are some schools that do want prayer in their schools, and that should be a determinant upon, right, their districts, where they're at. Now, when you say prayer in our schools, are we talking about group prayer, right? Or are we talking about prayer with the teachers? Should the students be introduced to prayer, or should the parents have the ability to opt out? Because when you're looking at it from one lens, you don't think about the other lenses. Should Muslim children be allowed to pray the 7 times a day? Right? Yeah. And that hit a lot of people just differently when I said that. But that's the broader question that we have to have. And Bud McKenzie says, thank you so much for your broadcast, because my boomer parents will only accept the news visually in this format you have. And I share it with them every time you're on. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah. So we're going to get going here. But I just really wanted you to take that in perspective. You know, I love God with all my heart, and I want other people to. I don't want to force them to. And if, in schools, if the teachers want to talk about God in the teachers lounge and pray for their students and making sure that, I appreciate that part, right? Because if the staff is being good to the children, that creates an environment where there's care, right? It's that part. Even if those teachers may not agree, some might be Baptist, some might be Muslim, however they pray. If they are praying to be good to the people that they are around, that's what's important, right? And it's really getting back to that, as opposed to this is going to be the dominant religion. Because guess what? If somebody comes in behind you, they can say this is going to be the dominant religion, or we're not going to have religion at all, right? So you have to be careful how you tread. You got to be careful what we are doing and how we are framing this. So again, thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News. And tomorrow we have our Women in Wellness Wednesday. So I'm really looking forward to that. So remember, stay well, stay focused, and stay unfiltered. We'll see you in the next one.